Be not concerned with the smallness of your numbers, neither be oppressed by the multitude of an unbelieving world. 5 grains of wheat will be endued with heavenly blessing, whereas 1,000 tons of tares will yield no results or effect. One fruitful tree will be conducive to the life of society. Abdu'l-Baha. In the awareness of a global community that in all its endeavors is hastening the emergence of divine civilization by manifesting the society-building power inherent in the cause. Indeed, in the Friends' growing consciousness of their efforts to foster inner transformation, to widen the circle of unity, to collaborate with others in the field of service, to help populations take charge of their own spiritual, social, and economic development, and through all such efforts to bring about the betterment of the world, express the very purpose of religion itself, the universal house of justice. So with that, I'm really happy to introduce Mr. James Elijio as our speaker today, and he'll be speaking about the spiritual foundations of society building. Mr. Elijio is a Garifuna educator, researcher, and writer. He is a Belizean and holder of a Master of Arts degree in Leading Innovation and Change from the York St. John's University of England. He presently works as editor of scientific, philosophical, and language theory texts. James is a declared and active Bahá'í for more than 30 years. A prolific writer, James has drafted over 40 books and thousands of poems. Among his published books is We Are With You at All Times, published by George Ronald of England. James's current and recent literary work revolves around developing coherent mindset systems. In this connection, James self-published Garifuna Mental Model, Foundations of Cross-Cultural Harmony and Collaboration. Subsequent to serving as one of the conveners and main facilitator of the first International Garifuna Women's Conference in November 2020, James has been researching, writing, and conducting voluntary community service to enhance consciousness of the spiritual foundations and history of cultures and nations. James presently lives in Lithuania with his wife, Aiste, and his 2 daughters, Philippa and Bernette, and his granddaughter, Ariel. So with that, I'll hand it off to Mr. Elijio.
Thanks very much, Pevane. And I would like to personally also welcome all on this call and yes, extend my encouragement and gratitude for all who have contributed, to the continuation and maintenance of this space, including Armin. Before I get into the structure of my talk for today, what I would like to do is to leave with the audience and even those who will be taking a look at the recording hereafter, 3 main points that I would like to certainly leave with you for reflection. The first point is that the universal educators of humanity, the manifestations of God, let us know that there is a preordained trajectory for human life. They do this by clearly indicating that all human experiences, including society building, take place between 2 major divine points. One, the beginning, and the other, the end. So in other words, the point of departure and the point of return. In the Christian revelation, we are informed that God is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. In the Islamic revelation, we are informed that we are on a journey from God unto God. And in the Baha'i writings, Baha'u'llah let us know that the beginning is the same as the end. And in connection to that, he reveals to us that the beginning of all things is the knowledge of God, and the end of all things is a strict obedience to whatever has been revealed from the heaven of divine glory. So really, these 3 points The second of which is this. You know, Abdul Baha, this is the son of Baha'u'llah, one of the two divinely ordained interpreter, you know, of the Baha'i writings. He mentions, you know, that each person has individual endowment, power, and responsibility in the creative plan of God. So which means that really as individuals become exposed and knowledgeable, aware of their endowment, power, and responsibility, they are more inclined to serve the cause of God, to serve the betterment of humanity. The third point I would like to leave with you all is that when we analyze each revelation, we come to the understanding that each one of the manifestations of God convey and promote one mindset system, which basically means that we are speaking about the knowledge of God, the vision of God, the virtues of God, the mission of God, the counsels of God, and the laws of God. Certainly, as we each look and analyze the revelations, we may actually come up to different categories, but basically what we come to realize is that we are speaking about one mindset system. So in terms of the structure of the talk, because I will continue to make reference to other revelations, I would just like to make a point about it that predominantly whatever I'm going to share is actually grounded in the Baha'i revelation. So as a result of that, what I will be doing is, first of all, present the Baha'i faith briefly, and thereafter we get into the main body of the presentation for today, the spiritual foundations for society building. So in regards to the Baha'i faith, based upon the fact that Baha'u'llah let us know that in reality, the cause of God or the religion of God is one, it is fitting for us to think or regard the Baha'i faith as the latest phase of the unfoldment of the cause of God on earth. The Baha'i faith actually began in Persia in the middle of the 19th century. Baha'u'llah was born 12th of November 1817. And this was at a time that definitely, again, just based upon the principle that the manifestations of God are generally born in that part of the world where there has been the greatest decadence, the lowest depth that human beings would have gone in regards to social reality and the spiritual reality, social conditions and spiritual conditions. So Baha'u'llah was actually born in this condition. But when we consider the wisdom behind this, we get to realize that it's a very strategic approach that God has made for the propagation of his faith, because the manifestations of God in each case raise up where they are born, basically saints, people that have actually risen to very high level of spiritual development and spiritual consciousness. And so when this is observed by other people in other parts of the world, they come to recognize the transformative power of the revelation of God. And so this is the case with Baha'u'llah, that he had to lift Iran from the condition that it was at, and at the same time, as a result of the power of his revelation, the universality of his revelation, we realize, and more we come to find that the Baha'i revelation is lifting entire humanity. Now, it's important to mention, as a result of the typical experience of religions, that generally shortly after the manifestation of God would pass away, that the religion would descend into weakness and disorder. Before Baha'u'llah passed away, he actually provided for the continuation of his faith, for the protection and propagation of the faith. And he did this by way of a written covenant, which made clear that Abdul Baha, his eldest son, would not only be his successor, but would actually be the one of the two main interpreters of his writings, and also the center, more so center of his covenant. And this is a very, very significant point. In addition to that, Baha'u'llah makes it known that Abdul Baha would serve as the example of every Baha'i ideal. In regards to the actual basic teachings of the Baha'i faith, we have one, that God is one, that all the manifestations of God, all the universal educators of humanity come from God. And that religion, as a result, is one, and that the teachings, of all the manifestations of God basically reflect and convey and promote the mindset system of God. When we say mindset system, in this case, we are indicating that all the intellectual elements of the teachings, of the divine teachings, are harmonious. So the knowledge of God, the vision of God, the virtues of God, all these intellectual elements, they are harmonious. And in connection to the vision of the faith, the Baha'i writings, the Baha'i revelation envisions a commonwealth in which the rights of individuals, cultures, and nations are safeguarded. A world in which force is the servant of justice. A world in which the governing institutions are democratically elected, and there is no campaign for the service on any of the institutions, particularly ruling institutions, no campaign. And that everyone is engaged in the continuous learning based upon the word of God, and so that that learning becomes translated into society building. The guardian of the Baha'i faith, the great-grandson of Baha'u'llah, Shoghi Effendi, makes clear that the primary mission of the Baha'i faith is the building of a divine civilization. And he makes a very clear point in this regard, which is really crucial. Shoghi Effendi described the Baha'i faith in one case as a revelation which propagated itself to the ends of the earth, infused into humanity its immeasurable potentialities, and is now under our very eyes shaping the course of human society. And it is very good that we keep in mind that this is the general principle of every one of the revelations of God. They propagate themselves to the end of the earth. They infuse into humanity their immeasurable potentialities. And as a result of that power, facilitate humanity in terms of serving the cause of God. In light of the main body of this presentation, I would like to say that we may define society building from various angles. But what I will do, is to utilize this, as a working definition for us, that society building has to do with people coming together to form a social order that reflects humanity's most cherished desires. And our experience to this point, especially taking a look from a virtue-based perspective, is that peace, justice, order, unity, honesty are among humanity's highest aspirations. The highest level of social order that humanity is bound to establish on the face of this earth, on the global stage, is a global society, a society that reflects world unity. And as we will see by way of this talk, it's very clear that increasingly, humanity's mindset system is merging with the mindset system of God. And as a result of that, what is happening is that there are increasing signs regarding society building process that is very much reflective of the revelations of God historically, and even now, as we look at the world, it's reflecting the kind of world that Baha'u'llah has envisioned. Now, other points that we need to certainly keep in mind, especially for us to appreciate this concept of the merging of the mindset system of humanity with the mindset system of God, are these concepts. So number one, let's take a look at the term that Baha'u'llah used, innate excellence. Now, this term innate excellence immediately let us understand that God created us in his image and likeness. And so innate excellence basically has to do with all the good that characterizes every human soul. There is clear indication that humanity will maybe continue for some time to have some challenge in regards to accepting the fact that the human reality is associated with innate excellence. But Baha'u'llah indicates that there will be a breakthrough because God does not operate on the basis of coercion, but on the basis of recognition of free will and empowerment. All the manifestations of God, they're very much focused on empowering humanity to reflect their innate excellence. In this connection, I would just like to read this one quotation that helps us to be clear about, humanity making the breakthrough to accept its innate excellence, which then will be converted into world order. Says the potentialities inherent in the station of man, the full measure of his destiny on earth, the innate excellence of his reality must all be manifested in this promised day of God. So that is one of a few concepts that I would like to leave with you. The next has to do with this thought of what are virtues, and the Baha'i writings let us understand that virtues are basically the seeds and the fruits of human civilization. We know that, again, these seeds and the fruits, they're directly, intimately connected with the innate excellence of humanity. The Universal House of Justice actually assists us to understand that one of the best ways to solve problems is to first identify what are those virtues, or what we may call human values or spiritual principles, are involved in the problem. And so that the solution of the problem gets to reflect one of the many virtues, one of the many human values that naturally characterizes the human soul. And in that connection, just allow me to also read this quotation from the Universal House of Justice. It says, "There are spiritual principles, or what some call human values, by which solutions can be found for every social problem. Any well-intentioned group can, in a general sense, devise practical solutions to its problems, but good intentions and practical knowledge are usually not enough. The essential merit of spiritual principle is that it not only presents a perspective which harmonizes with that which is immanent in human nature, it also induces an attitude, a dynamic, a will, an aspiration, which facilitate the discovery and implementation of practical measures. Leaders of governments and all in authority would be well served in their efforts to solve problems if they would first seek to identify the principles involved and then be guided by them." A highlight in regards to these virtues is that the root of many of the problems that humanity face is non-alignment with the virtues that characterizes the human soul. And we will speak a little bit more about this as we get into speaking, about self-harmonization. The other concept, that will be very good for us to have in mind as we go forward is, what is the mind? And I think based upon divine writings, it is very good to think about the mind, as a generator, a storehouse, and a mirror of all the goodness that lie within us. So the mind is an entity that we need to certainly pay keen attention to, and so that it can operate again in harmony with our innate excellence. And there's something that also we have in the Baha'i writings, it lets us understand that all the intellectual realities that we see around us, all the concepts, the technology, the scientific advancements, arts, industries, these are all emanations of the human mind. And again, in connection to deeply appreciating this community, this society building process, it is very good for us to pay keen attention to what is education. And again, from the perspective of the fact that we are in the process of harmonizing our mindset system with that of God, education can be seen as that tool or that process by which human beings are assisted to align their knowledge, their vision, their mission, to their favored virtues. And I think we could say favored virtues in this case, again, because the cause of God is very much respectful of human beings making decisions. And this even goes to the point of training children, training junior youth. The free will of the individual always need to be recognized. And so Again, with this in terms of what we can refer to as a coherent virtue-based mindset system. It means that all those elements, all the intellectual elements that basically characterize revelation, we are also harmonizing them. We are also harmonizing them within the general human context. So let us get into the role of the manifestations of God. And really, I believe that for us to, again, be confident regarding the society building process that is taking place in the world, it is very good for us to have in mind that Baha'u'llah let us understand that the cause of God has two major parts. One part of it is the cycle of prophecy, or the prophetic cycle. And the second part of it is the cycle of fulfillment. It is very important to have this in mind because, you know, there can be questions. Questions can arise regarding, you know, the possibility of the Baha'i faith to really bring into being the kind of world that Baha'u'llah, you know, has spoken of. So Baha'u'llah let us understand that, yes, all the revelations before the age of the Baha'i faith, all of those, they are part of the prophetic cycle. The Baha'i faith is the early part of the cycle of fulfillment. And so the early part of humanity is very much associated with a stage of immaturity. And this phase that we are in is directly connected to the phase of human maturity. So we could see it as a tree that has been developing, and now that tree of humanity has come to the stage where it will bring forth its fruits. And we could see again why is it that Baha'u'llah made clear that we are living in the age when the innate excellence of humanity will be made manifest on the face of the globe. Now, something that is very important to also have in mind, something important that is very important, it's very important to have this in mind, is that the point, the very point of that power for the cause of God to go forward has to do with love, the law of love. And in terms of providing a context of love as it relates to the cause of God, it is very good for us to have in mind that love is more of a central aspect of the cause of God. And so we get to appreciate that when we consider that from the biblical teachings, we get to find that it is said that God is love. From the Judaic revelation, we are informed that God created us in his image and likeness. From the Islamic revelation, we are informed that we get to know ourselves through getting to know God. And the Baha'i writings let us understand that love of God is the object of all human attainment. And the Baha'i writings also let us understand that there are basically four kinds of, let's say, real love. The love of God to the identity of God, the love of God for humanity, the love of humanity for God, and the love of human beings for other human beings. And so in terms of the articulation of the law of love, Baha'u'llah said, but in the writings of Baha'u'llah, we find this statement: whatever he, the well-beloved, ordained, the same is verily beloved. And it's very interesting to also note that in the Christian revelation, we get to find these words that anyone who does not love does not know God, for God is love. And so this law of love is very much the power that is causing humanity to go through the various stages of a social and spiritual evolution that it has gone through. So that love of God has allowed humanity to go from family unity to tribal unity to city-state establishment to nation building, and it has also allowed us to enter into this phase of human evolution, world unity. So that law is something that is operating on us constantly, although it is not yet a law that many people of the world are familiar with. But certainly as the awareness of the law of love increases, what will happen is that humanity will yield a lot more to the terms of the revelation of the age. Now, signs of convergence, as it relates to humanity's mindset system merging with the mindset of God. We know that, again, just thinking about this concept of a virtue-based mindset system, that a number of virtues have become well known and well established in the human consciousness. For example, let us consider justice. In the Baha'i writings, actually Baha'u'llah inform us, that justice is the best beloved in the sight of God. And generally, and I'm sure that most of us on this call will know this, there is this saying, there is this understanding that justice is the golden rule. Justice having to do with each one of us doing unto others as we would like others to do unto us. Another virtue that has become well known, and there is even a saying connected with it, is honesty. It is said that honesty is the best policy. And in connection to unity, it is said, united we stand, divided we fall. So these sayings and these and expressions regarding these virtues is already indicating the orientation of humanity as it relates to its evolution of this mindset that is reflective of the mindset of God. Now, a number of cultures, and well, definitely when we think about cultures and nations, all cultures and the nations have virtues as their foundation, because we know without people coming together, without unity, we cannot have a culture. Without unity, we cannot have a nation. And without collaboration, there is no possibility for a culture to develop. Without collaboration, there is no way that a nation can develop. And so we could see that cultures and the nations are actually projections of the innate excellence of humanity. It's a way of humanity manifesting the goodness of God that lie within itself. And now when it comes to actually directly connected to the Baha'i faith, we could see, that Baha'u'llah, has mentioned that he says, we desire the good of the world and the happiness of the nations. Now, the Universal House of Justice says, that the world order of Baha'u'llah is the divinely ordained system for which nations and people so desperately search. So we could see a direct connection there. We can see harmony. And we could also think about this prayer of what we know as the Lord's Prayer, the prayer that is attributed to Christ, where Christ prayed for the kingdom of God to be established on earth. So these are actually signs. These are actually signs of the merging of the mindset of humanity with the mindset of God. There is already point points made by leaders, by world leaders that that we need to certainly align. We need to certainly align our mindset with peace. Something that I would like to make reference to is that in the preamble of UNESCO, we have this particular statement that given that wars begin in the minds of men, means that we need to establish the basis of peace or the pillars of peace within the minds of men. And so all in all, I believe that it's very evident. We have much evidence, that the mindset of humanity is certainly harmonizing, though gradually, with the mindset of God. Now, I'd just like to get into self-harmonization as it relates to our own contribution, to the progress of society. There is a particular statement that is made by the guardian of the Baha'i faith. This is Shoghi Effendi, the great-grandson of Baha'u'llah. He says that one thing and only one thing will unfailingly and alone secure the undoubted triumph of this sacred cause, namely the extent to which our inner life and private character mirror forth in their manifold aspects the glory, the splendor of those eternal principles proclaimed by Baha'u'llah. And so again, we come back to this principle of mirroring, because again, when we think about the thought that God created us in his image and likeness, that very testament, that very expression have to do with the principle of mirroring. And so Baha'u'llah, Shoghi Effendi is clearly indicating to us that for the cause of God, for humanity to be able to progress the way that it would like as spiritual beings, is that innate excellence need to be reflected. And in other words, what needs to happen is that human beings come to recognize themselves, recognize their own reality, and to learn how to take care of their reality. We know that the Universal House of Justice wrote a letter, and this was 1st of September 1983, in which it actually passed on to us information having to do with how can we take care of our soul. And in there, it makes reference to these various points as the prerequisites of spiritual growth. And it has to do with the reading of the Word of God, reflecting and meditating on the Word of God, teaching the cause of God, and carrying out our profession in a spirit of service. And it also clearly indicates the need for prayers. So this is something that is very, very important, on the personal level. And we do know also that in order for us to effectively contribute to society, there needs to be a kind of harmony with ourselves, or we could refer to that as friendship with our own soul. In one prayer, actually, Abdul Baha states, he says, thou art more friend to me than I am to myself, making reference to the fact that God is more of a friend to us than we are to ourselves. And so we know that friendship, really one of the basic aspects of friendship is, really taking care. So each individual also needs to be able to take care, of his soul, his or her soul, and so that there is unity at the individual level. And that unity at the individual level definitely contributes to unity in a larger context. So unity within the context of the family, within the context, of the society. Now, when the individual, especially child, is raised with this awareness of his or her innate excellence, what happens is that when the time comes for that individual to choose a profession, generally what will happen is that they will choose a profession that allows them to serve others. Because again, coming from that foundation that they get to recognize, that characterizes their soul, that their goodness, the goodness that they have within themselves is something that is bound to be expressed, bound to be shared. And as we share that with others, it means that, yes, that is also part of us taking care of our soul. So we can see children, junior youth, so these are, children, possibly we can say children between the age of 11 and 15, these are junior youth, and, older youth and adults going through this process, of actually developing themselves, and so that they can contribute to the betterment of society, which we call the twofold moral purpose. So when beyond the stage of youth, these young people children and youth who we would have been working with, they become parents. And based upon the upbringing, based upon the experience that they would already have, there is a very high chance, certainly, that those parents would be passing on that same orientation, that same spiritual orientation onto their children, and so that the cycle of society building, responsible society building, continues. Now, the importance of the individual development and having this spiritual orientation becomes very important for the institutions of society. Because the institutions of society, we can see them as organs, just as we have organs for our body. We can see each institution, be it educational, be it legal, scientific, technical, each one of these institutions, they are part of the body of the society. And so as they work in harmony one with the other, with the aim, of having a society, having a community that reflects and nurtures, these aspirations, the high aspirations, of the society. It is then that the community can grow and develop in such a way that everyone within that society are benefiting from the collective goodness, from the common weal. So parenting becomes a very, very important, important contribution to society building, and that is parenting as it relates to the family as the fundamental institution, as one of the most basic institutions of society. And we know that the family also serves as a nursery for the proper development, of children and youth. And so now we take a look at community. So community is basically the sum of individuals, families and other institutions. And so in light of, again, going through this evolution, this emerging of the mindset of humanity and the mindset of God, it is very important that the community remains open to the nurturing of that kind of mindset where each one cares for the other, that each individual is going through that process of, this twofold moral purpose, where each individual is developing himself, herself for the benefit of society on a whole. So I come to this part where we provide assurance, that what we're talking about, what we're speaking about is a process that has been taking place, from time immemorial, a process that has been actually going from family unity, tribal unity, city-state establishment, nation building, and now we have entered, the phase of world unity, basically the highest phase of social order that humanity will attain on this globe. And in terms of the assurance that this will continue, to take place, with that this new world order will continue to evolve. Again, we have from the Baha'i writings this particular statement, actually made by Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the Baha'i faith, where he says, the world is in truth moving on towards its destiny. And we also have a statement that is made by Abdul Baha, where Abdul Baha says, that the reality of man shall come forth as the image of God, his creator. And as we had mentioned earlier, Baha'u'llah said it rather plainly, when he says, that the beginning of all things is the knowledge of God, and the end of all things is strict obedience to whatever God has revealed. All these assurances provide us with the confidence to know, that the effort, the humble effort that we make in regards to contributing, to the progress of the world, they are very valuable, very, very valuable. And we are living at a time now when we basically see that certainly one individual can make such a big difference. And that difference can be for the good, and that difference could also be for the weakening of society, because we already have information that even in cases where institutions were regarded as actually unshakable and very formidable, ironclad, that sometimes one individual, can enter and make it really challenging for those institutions to effectively operate. And so it's rather, it's a welcome to know that in the Baha'i writings, it indicates that if it is considered with insight, it will be seen that all the forces of the universe in the last analysis serve the covenant, the will of God. And so we are on our way. And with that, I certainly look forward to your questions or comments.
Thank you so much for that talk. That was really interesting. We really appreciated it. And now we have some time for Q&A. So if anyone has questions, you can put it in the chat.
I would just like to say that really a number of the concepts that we have shared, they certainly require much reflection. And why, what comes to mind is this, is a statement that was made by the Universal House of Justice in a document, in a document that actually a letter that it wrote to the world, to the peoples of the world, the promise of world peace. In that letter, the House of Justice mentioned that though many people desire peace, because of the kind of experience that we have had historically, there is doubt. There is doubt that peace is possible because there is this thought that that human beings are naturally quarrelsome. Which and this thinking, this thought about the reality of humanity has been holding human beings back, from even sometimes thinking about recognizing this natural goodness that characterizes our true reality. So, and as you mentioned, it is very good that Baha'u'llah made a point about this, because this is one of the most crucial points. The point about the person, the individual, recognizing their innate excellence. And so once that innate excellence becomes the reference point in terms of our vision, our personal vision, our personal mission, once that innate excellence become our reference, then it means that we will be fulfilling the very thing that the beloved guardian, that the guardian of the Baha'i faith clearly testified to, that in itself is key to the success of the cause of God on earth, and which is intimately tied to the betterment of humanity.
Thank you. We have one question here. What do you understand of the community process when one is working alone without others showing receptivity towards it?
Very good. In terms of receptivity, well, I believe that the Baha'i writings, again, by way of Shoghi Effendi, clearly indicates that in this age, there is high level of receptivity. There is very high level of receptivity. Generally, the challenge is, how do we tap into that receptivity? I believe that, again, the point about how do we get people engaged in this, let's say, divine society building process? How do we do that? I believe that a key thing has to do with asking the question, what is the kind of world that you as an individual would like? Well, actually, I'm getting into an exercise that I have carried out myself, So there is a letter from the House of Justice, and I've made reference to this, but I just want to bring it back into focus, where it says that the world order of Baha'u'llah is the divinely ordained system for which nations and people so desperately search. And that letter actually was written 2007, and since about then, what I've been doing is actually asking people the question, so rather than just telling people, okay, that this is it, that what we desire is the world order of Baha'u'llah, we ask the question, what is the kind of world? What are the kind of people that you would like in your ideal world? What are those virtues that you would like to characterize everybody in your ideal world? And normally, when we pose the question in this way, which means that we're not telling people what to do, but we're basically asking them what is it that they desire, what are their aspirations. When we do it this way, in my own experience, people open up, and there is no fear in that regard, also because you are providing them the opportunity to speak from their worldview, and you're not in any way, let's say, causing them to feel like you are imposing your worldview on them. And when we do this, it is then that more and more we get to find, we come face to face with what Baha'u'llah assures us, that in fundamentally, humanity is like one soul in many bodies. And so it has to do with how do we tap into the receptivity, the high receptivity that people have, and how do we also manage it, because it's, once somebody has actually expressed what is the kind of society he or she would like, there is a higher chance. There is a higher chance, that they will be willing to work towards actually building that kind of world, and to let them also have a sense of ownership of the process. And one question connected to that is this, that okay, if somebody says, I would like a world of, let's say, peace and justice, so a question connected to that is, do you believe that you will be able on your own to build that kind of world? Many people understand that that is not possible, because we have other individuals that actually get to comprise the society. And so this whole idea of collaboration, then the need for collaboration starts. And so in that sense, if we're working alone, we naturally work alone in the beginning. But once we open up the interests of others regarding the kind of society that they would like, then it means that we have at least another individual with whom we can operate. And as we go on like this, and frankly, I can say that this is the approach more and more that the Baha'i world is taking, that the aspirations of people is requested, so the Baha'i friends would come to individuals and ask, okay, like example to mothers, possibly, what kind of neighborhood would you like? What kind of neighborhood would you like here? And many times, parents would say, I certainly want a neighborhood where my child can grow up in a safe, orderly way, and so once that parent has expressed an idea like that, then the possibility to collaborate increases. And this is the way, really, that the kingdom of God on earth will be established, because in the writings of Baha'u'llah, he mentioned this, and which is very helpful. Baha'u'llah says consultation, which is basically the process of collective decision making, which means that we listen to each other. He says consultation is the fundamental element of the divine edifice. And we have also made reference to the fact that even the nature of governance in the kind of world that Baha'u'llah has envisioned, even the nature of governance will be very much based on consultation. So that's a very, very good question, because we can, the perception that that receptivity is low, I believe many times it's connected to us not yet finding how is it that we can engage the other person, and the finding out from others what is the kind of society that they would like to build.
Thank you. Let's see, there's another question saying, how can young people be empowered to lead in society building efforts spiritually and practically?
Very good. That's an excellent question. Again, if we take into consideration that that basically all of us desire the same thing, and again, this goes back to the law of love, that whatever God desires, and yes, it can take some time for us to come to this conviction, to this level of certitude. But I believe that it's very good when we follow this guidance of Baha'u'llah, where he says, immerse yourselves in the ocean of my words, that ye may unravel its secrets and discover all the pearls of wisdom that lie hidden in its depths. And also clearly indicating, that it's very important that we get to know ourselves. Actually, Baha'u'llah says that true loss is for him who had lived his life in utter ignorance of his self, which means that a very important body of knowledge is self-knowledge. Yeah. And so when we help children, to discover themselves, and again, connected to this, to engaging the other person, even engaging the child, the way that we can engage the child to begin their own society building mindset is to ask, what are the qualities that you like about your friend? Because again, depending upon the age of the child, that child will be able to give us, maybe certain kind of response. But I can tell you, even early part of this year, January, February, I had the opportunity to offer a voluntary community service in Belize. And so I had the opportunity to work with about 75 children. And these children, well, it was children and junior youth, so the age range from 8 to about 12. Yeah. And so we did this workshop where we asked them, for the younger children, because I was thinking, let us make the question simpler for them. But I get to realize that a number of these children, their awareness regarding qualities was so advanced that that question that I thought would be more fitting for children, it wasn't relevant. They understood. And so those children and junior youth, they get to identify friendliness, care, unity, love, as the qualities that, these were the 4 dominant qualities that they had chosen. And those children were involved in a group that had to do with learning the Garifuna music by way of music. And those children actually stayed together. And so the process of working with them apparently increased as a result of them being engaged in this kind of conversation. So I believe that in regards to engaging children and youth, yes, it's really important that we let them get to realize that, there is this goodness in you, and we understand that that goodness that is in you, that is the kind of goodness that we would like. And again, generally this is the case, and it's for this reason, again, that in the Baha'i writings, we have it rather plainly that the only way that the cause of God will become victorious and fulfill its goals in this world is that those virtues, those spiritual principles, those human values that naturally exist within us, that those become expressed. And so we do have within the Baha'i community, what we call the institute process. And so as part of the institute process, we have children's classes, we have special classes for junior youth, and we also have what we call study circles for adults. But friends, really one thing that stands out is that, like as Baha'u'llah says, he says, we desire the good of the world and the happiness of the nations. And I believe that based upon just factoring in the law of love, let us understand that that same intention that Baha'u'llah has is the same intention that all the universal educators of humanity have, is the same aspiration that each person has. Actually, Abdul Baha, again, the son of Baha'u'llah, the center of his covenant, he made a statement like this. He says that there is not one soul whose conscience does not testify that there is no more important matter in this day than universal peace. We are getting, that kind of awareness. That kind of awareness is directly connected again to our innate excellence. And so, again, becoming very familiar with what Baha'u'llah implies when he speaks about our innate excellence and how does that relate to the kind of world that we are to build. That becomes really, really critical. And what I've also found is that when we explore innate excellence with an individual, they really get to feel better about themselves, and they get to realize, they get to become more aware of this potential that lie within them. And the potential, as Baha'u'llah indicates, it's natural. But what has to happen is that, especially for children, that innate excellence needs to be protected, and we need to constantly be finding ways how to ensure that innate excellence is channeled into behavior, into service, into society building.
Thank you. Let's see. I think we have time for one more question. And the question is, with wars in the world at this time, are there signs of establishment of the lesser peace?
Yes. Well, definitely in terms of the lesser peace, we are already living in that time of lesser peace. There's indication in the Baha'i writings, that when the governments of the world essentially come together with the intention of peace, that's a major aspect of lesser peace. And so with the existence, although we need to keep in mind that we are at the early stage. We are at the early stage of the age of fulfillment, which means, and sometimes we may forget this, which means that we have just recently left that stage that had to basically do with nation building. We have just recently left that stage, at least based upon the Baha'i writings. And all that time, for the past 6,000 years, and Abdul Baha speaks very plainly about this, that for the past 6,000 years, that for the most part, humanity has been involved with wars. And then he suggests, why don't we now try peace? Yeah, so now we also have, the House of Justice clearly indicating that the rate at which change has taken place, especially, after the coming into being countries where we have constitutions, the conditions in the world certainly has been changing. But I have to say this, that because, all humanity desire a world of peace, it's very challenging to recognize, because we all want the goodness of the world, it becomes very difficult for us to be able to see the good that is happening when there are these wars that are taking place. But what Shoghi Effendi indicates is that, we have two processes taking place at the same time. We have the process of disintegration, which means that, the conditions associated with the old world order, those are basically being challenged now. They're breaking down, so it's like, it's more like we are at this point where the old house, is recently broken down. The old house is recently broken down, and we are just starting to build a new house. So we haven't entered that house yet. So in terms of signs of the lesser peace, we can also take it that the equality of men and women, we need to factor that into peace, because if there isn't a equality between the sexes, then it is rather very difficult for us to talk about peace. The harmony of science and religion. There has been a lot of debates, regarding regarding religion and its relevance, but more and more we are finding out that scientists are recognizing, the wisdom, of divine teachings. Like just recently, I saw a video on Stephen Hawking. It's apparently, it was not a video that was widely circulated, but it's on YouTube, where Stephen Hawking was speaking about the possibility of life after death. So what is happening in the world is that we overlook, maybe because of the nature of news that tend to come over, and even people within the media company, the media world, they are concerned about this. That for the most part, what comes over or what is channeled into the news space are the negative things that are happening. So, for example, right now, a predominant news, in many parts, have to do with this war that is taking place, between Russia and Ukraine, for example. It's a concern. And I think that that kind of situation, that very war that is taking place, can overshadow the recognition of many other things, in addition to efforts towards equality between men and women, efforts towards peace, efforts towards let's say the world of science collaborating with the world of religion. And we know that for example, the World Bank has been involved in terms of engaging religious communities, in terms of them making contributions, to society on a whole. Now, I would like to also mention this, because I think it's pertinent in regards to this question of world peace. Because, a major aspect, one major goal of the Baha'i faith is to bring about world peace. There is a story, it's a Baha'i story, regarding one believer. His name was Varka, who came to ask Baha'u'llah, when would the cause of God become universal? Because there's concern, like if we're, when we look at the principles, of the Baha'i faith, at least during the time that Baha'u'llah lived, those principles would look very utopic. Yeah, they would look very utopic. And maybe even now for some people, equality of men and women, universal peace, harmony between science and religion, they can sound yet a little bit utopic. They can still, because we are in the early phase. So this believer came to ask Baha'u'llah, okay, when would the cause of God become universal? And Baha'u'llah answered in this way. He says that what will happen is that there'll be a time when the peoples of the world look at religion and they will think that they will regard it as irrelevant. They will regard it as irrelevant, and they will try to get rid of it. Yeah, and really, when we take a look at the world, we can see that in certain countries you cannot publicly speak about religion. It's regarded as something that needs to just take place in a private space. Yeah, But yeah, so yes, so religion would be looked at as irrelevant. But after some time, what will happen is that people will come to realize that it is not possible to live without religion. You know, because again, religion is very much provides, if we compare science, let's say the general perspective of science and religion, we could see that science provides, again, these virtues, these human values, these things that we need to be able to bring about sustainable solutions to challenges. Yeah. So yes, so we would go from the point where we do not want to have anything to do with religion to the time when we come and we say, yes, religion is necessary. And when that becomes more of the position of a critical mass of human beings, it is then that the cause of God would become universal. And in terms of the question also, it's very good for us to make reference to this fact, you know, that Shoghi Effendi had testified that these various principles of Baha'u'llah, that the leaders of the world, they were already, even from his time, you know, so this is, you know, Shoghi Effendi passed away in 1957, but even before, so in his writings, Shoghi Effendi clearly indicates that leaders of thought, they were already adopting, you know, these same positions, you know, of the Baha'i faith, and that leaders were already implementing them, although it was on the basis of the forces of circumstances. So what we are indicating here too is that, yeah, this lesser peace, you know, is evolving. We are at that time, and so more and more we are also seeing the principle of collective security taking place. So even though the United Nations, for example, is well, we could still see that it can do with more strengthening, but the very fact that it is in that it exists, it's a point. It's an indicator in regards to human evolution that we are already turning the curve, you know, towards what Baha'u'llah is making reference to as the New World Order. So there are many signs of the New World Order of Baha'u'llah actually taking place in the world.
Thank you so much. Well, that's all the time we have today. So thank you so much, Mr. Elijio, for your talk and for answering our questions. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And our speaker next week will be Dr. Ghani Fanona Pazir, and his topic will be An Introduction to Baha'u'llah's Kitab-e-Iran, the Book of Certitude. So again, these talks are every Saturday at noon Eastern time, and I've put the link to our YouTube channel and our mailing list in the chat if you'd like to join. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Have a good week. Bye.